In the time it takes you to watch this video, Elon Musk will have earned over $6 million. We're talking about more than 3 lifetimes of an average American's earnings. We might be witnessing the creation of a permanent aristocracy that could reshape democracy itself. The question isn't whether inequality exists, it's whether it's hardwired into human civilization. Today, we're uncovering the hidden forces that determine who wins and who loses in the global economy. The numbers that reveal everything. Let's start with a reality that reframes everything you think you know about money. In 1989, the top 1% of Americans controlled 22% of the nation's wealth. By 2023, that number jumped to over 31%. The bottom 50% of Americans, 165 million people, collectively own less wealth than 735 billionaires. But while inequality within countries like America exploded, something unexpected happened globally. Worldwide inequality actually started decreasing around 2008. Billions in Asia lifted themselves out of extreme poverty. China alone moved more people out of poverty in 50 years than in all previous human history. The twist: countries that reduced global inequality simultaneously experienced massive internal inequality. China's wealth gap nearly doubled as it embraced capitalism. The pattern repeated everywhere: external equality, internal division. The hidden truth about wealth creation. Most people imagine wealth as a fixed pie needing better slicing. This assumption crumbles under examination. Over the past 200 years, the global economy has doubled every 25 years. The world is literally twice as rich as when you were born. This means 90% of the wealth that will exist in your lifetime hasn't been created yet. The real question isn't who has what today, it's who will create and capture tomorrow's wealth. Consider your smartphone. In 1983, the first mobile phone cost $4,000 and barely worked. The wealthy weren't hoarding existing phones. They funded the innovation that put supercomputers in everyone's pockets for under $100. The education pipeline that decides everything. But there's a darker mechanism at work. The tools of modern wealth creation aren't distributed equally. Elite universities serve as gatekeepers to the tech industry, driving today's fortunes. Harvard draws 2/3 of its students from the top 20% of families. At Stanford, nearly 1 in 5 comes from the top 1%. These institutions aren't just educating students, they're creating the next generation of wealth holders from an increasingly narrow slice of society. Meanwhile, the Bay Area's tech economy generates $900 billion annually, with per capita GDP higher than oil-rich Qatar. But this digital goldmine remains accessible primarily through elite education pipelines. The debt trap operating in plain sight. There's another force driving inequality that operates completely under the radar. The world carries over $300 trillion in debt. While economists say we owe it to ourselves, the reality is more sinister. About 95% of global debt is owned by households, but not distributed equally. The wealthy own the vast majority, collecting interest payments from everyone else. This creates a self-reinforcing cycle. The rich lend money, collect interest that makes them wealthier, giving them more capital to lend. Meanwhile, borrowers pay an increasing share of their income servicing debt owned by the wealthy. The Meritocracy Illusion. The most dangerous myth about modern inequality is that it reflects merit. Warren Buffett puts it bluntly: market systems excel at producing goods and services, but they don't reward the most deserving people. A brilliant teacher creates enormous social value, but earns a fraction of what a hedge fund manager makes manipulating financial markets. The uncomfortable truth: wealth increasingly comes from wealth itself, not productive contribution. If you inherit assets, they grow automatically as the economy expands. If you only have labor to sell, you're competing where your bargaining power has been systematically weakened. The historical pattern. Every civilization has exhibited economic inequality. There's never been a perfectly equal society, but the degree varies dramatically based on choices societies make. During the mid-20th century, developed countries achieved their lowest inequality levels in recorded history, through progressive taxation, strong unions, and robust safety nets, the Great Compression. The turning point came in the 1980s when countries began dismantling these equalizing institutions. Tax rates on the wealthy dropped, union membership declined, financial markets were deregulated. The policy tools that actually work. Countries can choose their inequality level through concrete policies. France maintains the same pre-tax inequality as America, but post-tax inequality is 20% lower due to progressive taxation. Denmark and the Netherlands kept inequality coefficients below 0.28 for decades through strategic choices. The tools are established: progressive taxes, inheritance taxes preventing dynastic accumulation, social transfers, universal education and healthcare, digital access policies. But as wealth concentrates, so does political power. The wealthy fund think tanks, buy media outlets, influence politicians in ways ordinary citizens cannot match. The democracy threat. This brings us to the most serious consequence, the threat to democratic governance itself. When individuals can purchase social media platforms, fund campaigns, and shape discourse through wealth alone, we approach oligarchy, rule by the wealthy few. Teddy Roosevelt warned about this exact scenario, describing a small class of enormously wealthy men whose chief object is to hold and increase their power as democracy's fundamental threat. The tools Roosevelt used, estate and capital gains taxes, have been systematically weakened. Estate tax now exempts the first $22 million per couple. For context, that's more than most people earn in 10 lifetimes. The generational transfer. We're approaching the largest intergenerational wealth transfer in history. As wealthy boomers age, $30 to $70 trillion will pass to their children over 3 decades. The mechanism making this problematic: the stepped-up basis loophole. When wealthy people die, heirs inherit assets without paying capital gains taxes on increased value. A portfolio growing from $1 million to $100 million passes to the next generation with no tax on that $99 million gain. This loophole saves wealthy heirs $40 billion annually. After a few generations, most of America's wealth could concentrate in thousands of families who never worked for it. The innovation question. Defenders argue inequality drives innovation. There's partial truth here. Wealth prospects do motivate entrepreneurs, but extreme inequality may hinder innovation by concentrating resources in hands focused on preserving existing wealth rather than creating new value. Moreover, extreme inequality reduces the innovation pool. When only wealthy families access elite education and startup capital, society loses brilliant minds born into less privilege. The technology wildcard. Emerging technologies add uncertainty to future trends. AI and automation could democratize opportunity or concentrate it further. AI tools might give individuals unprecedented ability to compete with corporations. Or, if development remains concentrated in tech giants, it could accelerate inequality by eliminating middle-class jobs while increasing returns to capital owners. The outcome depends on policy choices we make today about AI development, data ownership, and technology access. The answer. So is wealth inequality inevitable? The evidence suggests not. Inequality exists everywhere, but its extent is determined by collective choices. Countries with strong democratic institutions, progressive taxation, robust safety nets, and inclusive education maintain much lower inequality than those without. The challenge is building political support for equalizing policies when wealth concentration gives the wealthy outsized influence. This requires sustained organizing, voter education, and leadership willing to challenge entrenched interests. The future remains unwritten. It will be determined by whether ordinary citizens can organize effectively enough to counter the political advantages that concentrated wealth provides. The next time someone tells you inequality is just natural, remember this: every society gets to choose how much inequality it tolerates. The question isn't whether some people will have more than others, it's whether we'll allow that difference to become so extreme it threatens democracy itself.